show you my toys.
Hey everybody, this is D Hunter bringing another action figure review. Today we're looking at the Mattel Multiverse Collect and Connect Killer Croc wave. Now this might be the final wave of Mattel DC Universe Classics Multiverse. Huge, almost 15-year spanning line if you go back to DC Superheroes and Batman. It is a sad day, and honestly, how dare Mattel do such an awesome wave at the end, right when they're losing the license, and it's going to McFarlane, which is probably going to be cool, but why would they make such an awesome wave at the end? Why couldn't they do this years ago? This is possibly my favorite wave we've ever gotten, definitely from Multiverse, and possibly even from DC Universe Classics. The main reason is we're getting some new Bat-related characters. My collection is predominantly Batman and related. KGBeast, first time in figure form, an appropriate Red Robin for the first time, an actual good Red Hood from Mattel, a Katana that looks like an agent of the Bat, Dick Grayson as Batman, Alfred with 4 different variations. My god, what an excellent wave. Home run Mattel. Now before we open these guys up, let's check out the packaging of the figure. I chose Alfred here. He's probably the one I'm most excited for in this wave, mainly because of all the different variations we can make of him. KGBeast would be my next one because he's a first time Bat villain in figure form. Anyway, you can see the front here. It says Collect and Connect at the top. DC logo, Alfred Pennyworth. Here's a picture of him from the comics. Multiverse, Mattel. Loving his heads. My god, I cannot wait to put them on him. I'm going to have to make sure that I get 3 more of these Alfreds so that I can display each one at the same time. Top here, DC. Side, same picture of Alfred. Same thing pretty much on the other side. The bottom, we've got a barcode and a bunch of credits. If you need the barcode, here it is. And then you can see Collect and Connect Killer Croc, KGBeast, Katana, Alfred, Red Hood, Dick Grayson as Batman, Red Robin. What an excellent wave. I haven't been so excited in a wave in a long time. And we just saw this Alfred less than a month ago at San Diego Comic-Con, and he's already in stores. I actually found this wave at Walmart. I almost never buy figures in stores. I get them online all the time. The thrill of the hunt used to be a lot of fun, but never finding anything, getting it quicker online, and usually cheaper for that matter. One of my subscribers mentioned that he found this wave, and I asked him what state he was in. He told me Illinois. I live in Indiana, so I thought, that's right next door. It's well worth going out and finding these. So I went out to Walmart, nothing. Went out to another Walmart, bam, whole wave. Super excited for this. And then of course I did end up getting 2 of each of these figures to keep my complete unopened Batman and related 6 and 7 inch figure collection. All the different multiverse and the new packaging, Bat and related, in front of my Batman and related comics. Alright, well now that we got these guys out of the package, here they are laid out with all their accessories and pieces of Killer Croc. And I must say, this wave is awesome. Handling these guys is great. They look great. They feel great. I can't wait to dig in deep to each one of these guys. This is the first time in a long while that I've bought a full wave of DC Universe Classics or Multiverse and been 100% excited for each one and the Collect and Connect. The previous wave, the Ninja Batman wave, at least in my opinion, kind of sucked. Nightwing was cool, the rest of it was garbage. At least for my Batman-specific collecting purposes. So I was forced to buy that entire set. And don't get me wrong, I enjoy having a few of the other figures for occasional use, but this here is what it's about. Completely comic accurate 6, actually 7 if you count Croc, figure wave. I am really pleased so far. So, let's dig in deep to each figure. So first of all, here is Dick Grayson as Batman. This is not something that happened recently. This was a good 10 years ago or so in the comics when Batman actually died, I believe, to Darkseid. And there was Battle for the Cowl and all this stuff. Dick Grayson ended up subbing for Batman for a while. Made a really cool run with him and Damian. So let's take a look at the actual figure. He's a little bit thinner than your typical Batman because Dick Grayson is smaller. Overall, like it. Kind of shorter ears, not super short. Wide eyes, thinner chin. Definitely not the block Bruce Wayne chin you're used to. Bat symbol, no oval. Belt kind of different. I like that he's slimmer. It's quite appropriate, exactly what they needed to do for this figure. Now I'm going to be looking at these guys from the figures that I'm most excited for last, and starting with the ones I'm least excited for. That's not to say I don't like this Dick Grayson as Batman at all, but to me, Dick Grayson's Nightwing, and I like my Batman as Bruce Wayne. He also comes with an unmasked Dick Grayson head, which I think is really cool. I'm going to try to pop that into a civilian body. And then a cowl, which I think might be the same one they released with Black Mask, but I'll check that out a little bit later. He also has the left leg of Croc. So the two accessories he comes with is a Dick Grayson head, unmasked, and he also comes with a cowl, so you could have this figure with his mask off holding his cowl, which is an absolutely cool feature. So let's take a quick look at his cowl. As you can see here, it's kind of bunched up, it's taken off. He could use his hand, hold it here on his side. Now I did say I thought it was like Black Mask's, maybe the re-release of that accessory. Sure, it was not. His is considerably different. I was actually thinking of this cowl in my collection, very similar to that one as far as the way it's designed. Not a re-release, not from the same figure, not from Black Mask. Cool feature nonetheless. So here he is with his mask on. And then here he is with his mask off, with his Dick Grayson head. And then here is his head thrown onto a civilian body. This is probably not necessarily the body I'm going to permanently use for Dick Grayson, but it's a start right now to kind of show you what I'm planning to do with this head. Next, let's check out the height of this figure. So this figure here, from foot to head, sitting at just a hair above 6.5 inches from the top of his head, and if you count the ears, 6 3/4 inches. Next, let's check out his articulation. Let's go ahead and start off with the head here, of course. Remember, it is removable. Go side to side, no problem. Can look down a little bit and up a little bit as well. His shoulders on a ball joint go out just a hair below 90 degrees. Of course, up, down, around, anything you want to do there. Bicep cut below that. He's got single jointed elbows, and there's no swivel at the top. His wrists can go around, and they're hinged as well. He's got a traditional ab crunch here. Really doesn't look back very much, but definitely looks down. So if you have him completely upright, he can look down that far, which is not too bad. His cape is, of course, cloth, and it's rather thin as far as the width goes. His hips go out a full 90 degrees. Ball joint side of there. Legs can go forward about that far. Back really not at all. He's got the thigh cut below that. Double jointed knees. Then his feet, of course, they can go up and then down, and they can rotate from side to side, can't tilt. Next, let's check this guy out compared to some other Batman figures. We'll look at mostly Mattel Batman figures. Don't forget that he's Dick Grayson. He is supposed to be smaller than Bruce Wayne. Here he is next to some DC Universe Classics Batman figures. And then here he is next to some DC Multiverse Batman figures. Here he is next to several various Mattel Dick Grayson as Robin figures. And then here he is next to some Mattel DC Universe Classics and Multiverse Nightwing figures. And then here is my entire Dick Grayson as Robin, Nightwing, Batman, or civilian action figure collection. Now, I may have a lot of them, but boy, I'm missing several of them as well. And then here's an aerial shot of all the Dick Grayson figures. And I do believe that I forgot these 3 Dick Grayson as Robin from Batman the Animated Series figures. And then here he is in the Batcave looking at the computer with his mask off, holding his cowl. Pretty cool features. Next, let's take a look at Katana. She does come with Killer Croc's torso area. She comes with a sword as well as one alternate hand to hold the sword, totaling 3 different hands. Before we look at those, let's take a look at the figure. You can see her face here. She's got that red dot on her forehead, slanted eyes, hair looking pretty nice. One shoulder pad on one side, not the other. This is sort of her more modern comic look. I believe in the comics she's in the Suicide Squad working for Amanda Waller, but she's actually a double agent reporting to Batman. And even if she's not that in the comics, that's definitely what this figure is going to be for me. I sort of consider Katana a Batman-related character for 2 reasons. Number 1, Batman and the Outsiders, he led her for quite a while as that team. And number 2, the cartoon Beware the Batman, which is very underrated, had her functioning as his Robin. So as you can see here, she's got one open gripping hand to hold her sword, as well as her actual sword. And as you can see, mine here is bent pretty bad. I'll probably use some hot water, heat that up and fix it. And then here's Katana as she has both of her fisted hands, getting ready to fight somebody. Little fisticuffs here. And then of course, here she is with her gripping hand, able to hold the sword. This will definitely be my default hand for her. And then here she is wielding her sword, getting ready for some action. Now that we've checked out her accessory, next let's check out the height of this figure. So from bottom to top, this figure is sitting at just about 6.5 inches tall. Next, let's check out her articulation. So starting with the head here, of course it can go around, it can look down about that far, up about that far, really not too bad. Her shoulders go out about that far, 90 degrees. Her left one goes a little higher than her right one because this armor obstructs it a little bit. It is on a ball joint side of there. It's all around. She is missing a bicep cut below there. Then she does have single jointed elbows here, and they do have a swivel at the top. So not exactly the same articulation scheme with all these figures. Then of course her wrist can swivel around and it's hinged as well. She has no ab crunch, which most of the female multiverse figures do not have, but she's got a ball joint sort of below her chest area here. It can look forward and back a little bit, and it can go around just a little bit, not all the way around. So with her legs completely straight, between her head and her ab crunch, she can look down about that far in total, and up that far, not too bad. Her legs go out really not that much, less than I expected. There is a ball joint side of there, but doesn't have a lot of range of motion. Then go forward about that much and back not at all. She's got the thigh cut below there. It does have double jointed knees. Don't go all the way back just because the leg is pushing against the other part of the leg. Then her foot, of course, it can go forward and back, and it can rotate around as well. Next, let's check her out compared to some other Katana figures. These are the Mattel Multiverse Katana from Suicide Squad, the movie. I did go ahead and get 2 of these figures because I wanted to build Croc twice for both of his alternate looks. As you can see, I ever so slightly modified this one here on the left. I simply just cut off her bang so that you could see her red circle better, and I thought it maybe made her a little bit more comic-ish. I do really wish that DC Universe Classics had made a classic Katana in her old school suit. That would have been very nice. And then here she is next to a couple of Mattel DC Superhero Girls Katana figures. One of these you would get from a single release, another one you had to get the 6-pack to get her. And then here she is next to a couple of DC Direct or DC Collectibles Katana figures. And then here she is next to my entire collection of Katana 6 and 7-inch figures. The big glaring omission is her in her Classics outfit. Honestly shocked that DC Universe Classics never did that figure. And then her collect and connect piece of Killer Croc is his torso. So we've got his left leg and his torso. Getting a little bit closer. Next, let's take a look at Red Hood. This is the first proper Red Hood Mattel's ever given us in his biker costume. Now, Red Hood's been wearing this for about 10 years, if not possibly a little longer in the comics. Kind of surprised it took Mattel this long to get to him. A pretty popular character at that. He does come with Killer Croc's right leg. He has 2 different heads, one with his helmet on and one with just a mask on. He has a total of 6 different hands. Looks like 2 gripping, 2 fisted, and 2 gun-wielding trigger hands. But before we look at all that, let's check out the actual figure. Now, this has been a long time coming. Mattel has made a Red Hood before, but it was a total crap version. I don't know why they would ever pick to make that one. His helmet looks pretty nice. Lines, dark around the white eyes, looking cool. He's got his leather jacket with zipper on it. He's got the bat symbol on his chest. He has guns that are permanently attached to the holsters. Kind of make you wonder why they gave trigger hands as well. Kind of an odd choice overall. He's looking really good. And then here are all of his accessories that actually belong to him. You can see the 2 different heads as well as the 6 different hands. Jason Todd as Red Hood. It's about time we finally got the Bat Family version of him. Here he is with his fisted hands, going to go beat someone down. Here he is with his 2 gripping hands. I personally prefer gripping hands over fisted hands as they can hold something and then often double his fists as well. But I do think I'm going to use his trigger hands as my default hands, for Red Hood uses guns quite often. And here he is with his 2 gun-wielding or trigger finger hands. Now, I almost find this hilarious that he doesn't come with any guns, and he has guns permanently attached in his holsters, which is quite annoying. I love when holsters are functioning and you can actually remove the weapons. If I were to guess, I'd guess at one point they were going to get guns with him, because why would they include these hands? And then here he is holding 2 matching guns I found lying around in my action figure accessory bags. Pretty cool. You do have to get over the fact that he's going to be holding these as well as having pistols in his holsters, which is fine. As I recall, Red Hood has tons and tons of weapons on him. Now let's check out his 2 different heads. Here's his first one with his helmet attached. You can see the lines there. Presumably were to open up to attach to his face. I'm sure this thing is bulletproof and armored in all kind of different ways. And then here would be his masked and unhelmeted head. It looks pretty cool. Definitely sort of the way I remember Jason Todd looking in Under the Red Hood and some of the comics. One little annoying thing about mine is you can see that flesh color at the top there. Kind of a little seam. Just kind of makes it look a little worse. I can always paint that black. Now that we've taken a pretty good look at his accessories, next let's check out the height of this figure. So from bottom to top on this guy, once again sitting at right around 6.5 inches. Next let's check out this guy's articulation. So his head here, of course, it can go around. It is removable as well. It can look down about that far, which is not too bad, and up about that far. Just be careful not to snag his helmet on the outside of his jacket. Once it goes on top, it won't go any further, but you can get inside and go a little bit higher up. Shoulders go out, definitely not 90 degrees, a little bit weak there. They're on a ball joint, so they can go up, down, around. He's got the bicep cut here. Single jointed elbows. And there's no swivel at the top. Kind of makes you think either they get the bicep cut or the elbow swivel. And then, of course, his wrist can swivel around, and they're hinged as well. And once again, the hands are interchangeable. He does have a traditional ab crunch inside of here. Pretty nice range of motion there. I've found some of these multiverse figures it doesn't let them look back. This guy can definitely do both. So if you straighten him out completely with his head looking down and his ab crunch, he can look down that far, which is quite a bit, and up that far, which is also not too bad. He's got a waist swivel below here. His legs go out a full 90 degrees, no problem at all. Ball joint side of here. Of course, they go out and around, all that fun stuff. For about that far, full 90 degrees, and back, not at all. He's got the thigh cut below here. Double jointed knees, pretty nice. Then, of course, his foot, go up, down, and it can rotate a little bit. Next, let's check them out compared to some other Red Hood figures, starting with the Mattel versions. Mattel made this version of Red Hood, which I thought was just ridiculous. They didn't make the biker version, the Bat Ally, the one that came back from the dead. They made this one here that was barely used in the comics at all. Seemed like just a horrible choice. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm happy to have that figure, but it should have been a variant, or at least a second or third release of Jason Todd in this form. Here he is next to a couple of old school classic Robin figures. These are both actually intended to be Dick Grayson as Robin, but I always use one for Dick Grayson and one for Jason Todd. Jason Todd used the original Robin costume when he was first out. Of course, in the New 52 or Rebirth, he had a different costume back then, but always my purpose for this guy. And then here he is next to some DC Direct and DC Collectibles. Jason Todd, not only as Red Hood, but also as Hush and as Batman figures. And then technically these guys are also Jason Todd figures. This is the Arkham Knight from the game Arkham Knight. Now Jason Todd was the Arkham Knight in that game. The Arkham Knight has surfaced in the comics recently, and there's no way that guy's Jason Todd. So in my action figure world, the Arkham Knight is not Jason Todd. And then here he is next to a custom Red Hood that I made many years ago. More than 10 years ago. Still probably the best version I've had until now. Finally have one, his biker outfit, that's actually not customized. This guy is sort of a Marvel Legends body. And here's a Marvel Legends Wolverine motorcycle that I always use for this particular Red Hood of mine. And just like I figured, it works just fine with this guy as well. So here he is with his added accessory, his motorcycle. Here he is next to a couple of DC Direct and DC Collectibles Joker as Red Hood figures. Now, Jason Todd obviously took on the mantle of Red Hood to sort of mock the Joker, especially after he killed him. And then here he is next to the Red Hood gang. And then here are all four Robins as they are nowadays with their new identities in the comics. Nightwing, Red Hood, Red Robin, and Robin. These are my favorite Mattel DC's Classics and Multiverse versions of each of these characters. And then here's the Red Hood on his shelf in his base. This is a custom diorama, which is probably intended for Punisher. I got on eBay for a really good price. See a bunch of weapons on the table, different gear, a little bit more. His motorcycle on the side there. And then here we are continuing to assemble Killer Croc. We're now up to 3 parts, making some progress here. Next, let's check out the Red Robin figure. This guy here comes with 2 alternate hands, totaling 4. Looks like 2 gripping, 2 fisted. He has Killer Croc's left arm, and he also has a staff, a weapon that Tim Drake very often uses in the comics. Now, I'm pretty excited for this figure. This is the first time we've gotten Red Robin in his modern Rebirth costume. Tim Drake was always probably my favorite Robin. Mattel finally can give us a good Red Robin figure, but they still haven't given us a traditional classic Tim Drake as Robin figure executed properly. So let's take a look at this figure. I think his face here looks really cool. His hair very reminiscent of how Tim Drake's always sort of looked. Love the mask. You can see his cape, got that yellow inside, black on the outside that Tim Drake started. Like his costume, the detailing's pretty cool. Love the RR on his chest. You know, in this belt, shin guards, etc. Really looking forward to putting another member of my Bat Family Rebirth team together. And so here are his accessories, 4 hands and his bow staff. Here he is displaying his fisted hands. And here he is with his semi-open gripping hands. And then here is his bow staff. Pretty basic, completely silver. Does have a little bit of a grip area both here and here for him to hold. And here he is holding his bow staff. This is a traditional weapon of Tim Drake in his Robin attires. And then of course he can also hold it with both hands at the same time. Next, let's check out the height of this figure. So this figure here, from bottom to top, sitting at just about 6.5 inches. Pretty consistent with the rest of the wave. Next, let's check out his articulation. So of course his head, of course it can go around from side to side. It can look down about that far and up about that far. His shoulders go out more than 90 degrees. Ball joint there, very nice range of motion. He's got a bicep cut right below that. He does have double jointed elbows. He's the first one of the wave to have this. He looks to be the most articulated of the wave, which is pretty cool. You can see the bottom half moving there, and the top half moves as well. Kind of unique look. He has no swivel inside there at all. His wrist, of course, you can swivel around, and it's hinged as well. He's got a traditional ab crunch in here. His cape is not cloth, made of a soft material, can kind of move around a little bit. It does have a waist swivel below the ab crunch. His hips can go out almost a full 90 degrees. Got a ball joint inside of there. Then go forward, not quite 90 degrees, and back, really not at all. He's got the thigh cut below that. And he's got double jointed knees. Then his foot can go up about that far, down that far, which is pretty nice. And they seem like they sort of rock and rotate a little bit. Next, let's check them out compared to some other Red Robin and Tim Drake figures. Starting with the kind from Mattel. So this is the only Red Robin Mattel has made so far. It's been filling in as my Red Robin for a long time, but the costume is very outdated, so it's kind of annoying. Red Robin has his own limited series at one point. I believe it was just after Bruce Wayne, Batman had died in the comics, and he was off searching for him. He wore this costume for a long time. The interesting thing about this costume is, I believe from Kingdom Come, there was a Red Robin wearing this costume, and they adapted that into the canon continuity. And then here he is next to all the different Red Robins in my collection. This one here is from DC Universe Classics, some sort of all-star wave. And of course the Multiverse version. This one here is, I believe, what he wore in the New 52 Teen Titans. This is from DC Direct, DC Collectibles. And this is an old Kingdom Come DC Direct figure. And then here are all the Mattel from Batman, DC Universe Classics, and Multiverse. Tim Drake has Robin figures that I have. And then here he is next to all of my different Tim Drake as Red Robin and Robin figures. Although I think technically this Kingdom Come guy might actually be Dick Grayson. And then here he is next to the figure that I use for Tim Drake in his civilian attire. And I have been waiting for a really long time to put a comic accurate Red Robin, Tim Drake, and Spoiler together. Really wish we could get a good 90s version of both these guys, but really happy to finally have this version. And then here are all four Robins as they are nowadays with their new identities in the comics. Nightwing, Red Hood, Red Robin, and Robin. These are my favorite Mattel, DC Universe Classics, and Multiverse versions of each of these characters. And then here we are, finally got Team Detective from Rebirth Comics complete. Of course, Multiverse didn't give us an orphan figure, which I expected them to do, but now with Mattel losing the license, I doubt we'll ever get one of those. So this old Cassandra Caine, DC Superheroes, Batgirl, is a nice fill-in for that. This here should have been one wave of figures at one point to build Clayface. Not sure why they BS'd and took so long to get these out. And then here are what I believe to be all of the Mattel Multiverse Bat characters they've made from the Rebirth comics. Notice I took Cassandra Caine, Orphan, out, as she is not from the Multiverse line. And then here's a few older Mattel DC Universe Classics figures that I think supplement the Rebirth Bat family fantastic. And as you can see, we've now got 4 parts of Killer Croc put together. Finally starting to take a little shape here. And now let's look at the KGBeast. This one is simply labeled the Beast. I assume that's what he's called in the Rebirth comics. This guy here is amazing. He's huge, beefy, bulky. This is a first-time Batman villain in figure form. I'm not counting the old Justice League Unlimited one, but that one is considerably smaller than this guy. This guy here is great. The last character they made, kind of similar, would be the Reaper, first time in figure form Batman villain. He does come with, looks like, 3 knives and then a shell for his weapon on his hand, as well as Killer Croc's head and crotch piece. So let's take a look at this actual figure. Me, I'm a huge sucker for Batman villains that are not the A or B. This is sort of a C-class villain, although they've been using him quite a bit in Rebirth, as I understand it, I think in the All-Star comics. So you can see his face here, nice mask, nice crisp paint detail. Got those spikes on top of his sort of shirt. Looks like it might be made from a Master of the Universe body. I don't know if they're still doing that or not. He's pretty big, kind of like the Dark Knight Returns Batman. Those arms, he's got tattoos or whatnot all across here. One hand's pretty normal. One hand has been replaced by a large gun. You can see he's got a belt here. Doesn't look like there's anywhere to holster his knives. Oh, never mind. There sure are at the bottom there. Overall, very excited for this guy here. New characters in figure form is what I'm most interested in. So let's look at his weapons here. He's got two smaller knives, one large knife or machete, and then a shell for his giant weapon. And then here he is with his shell into his large weapon here. It's pretty basic, nothing special going on here. Comes out with ease. Pretty cool little feature. And then we've got his three knives, his smaller knife here, a little bit of sculpting on the blade, and then it does have some grip on the handle. And his larger knife here, once again, sculpting on the actual blade and a grip, completely different design. And then here he is holding one of his smaller knives. And then here they are, both holstered away onto his boots. And then here he is holding his larger knife or machete. And that means this guy here is able to utilize all four of his weapons at the same time, holstering his two knives, holding his large knife, and using his gun. Absolutely love a weapon that can be holstered, and love a figure that can utilize all of his accessories at the same time. And if you want to, you can even attach his large machete to his gun and treat it kind of like a bayonet. Next, let's check out the height of this figure. So this guy here, from bottom to top, is sitting at just a hair above 6 3/4 inches tall. So far, the tallest of the wave. So now let's check out this guy's articulation. Starting with the head here. Of course, his head can go from side to side around. It can look down this far, which is pretty nice, and up, really not at all. His shoulders go out a little bit less than 90 degrees. There's a ball joint inside of there. Of course, he can go up, down, around. He's got a bicep cut below that. He's got single jointed elbows that go in a full 90 degrees. No swivel here, but on this side where his gun is, he does have a swivel there. His wrist is both swivel and hinged. It can go around, hinged as well. I don't believe he has an ab crunch inside of here. It feels like it's one solid piece of plastic under this rubber. He does have traditional waist articulation below that. Now his legs are kind of weird. It seems like there's a ball joint inside of there. You can kind of see it, but it's not just that. So he can move independently of that thing just a hair. And then if you spread his legs apart, he goes out a full 90 degrees, really no problem. But it's very unique in there. It's almost like the old DC Universe Classics combined with a ball joint and executed kind of poorly. Then go forward, not too much. Back, really not too much either. He does not have a thigh cut here. He's got single jointed knees. Don't go a full 90 degrees back. Of course, his foot can go up and down, and it can sort of tilt and rotate. Now, KGBeast's real name is Anatoly Knyazov. One interesting thing about him that you may or may not be aware of is he was actually in the film Batman vs. Superman. He did not have his costume on. He's the guy with a tattoo on his neck that worked for Lex Luthor. Something I found extremely interesting as an Easter egg. And then here he is next to a custom KGBeast. I actually purchased this guy on eBay many, many years ago. This is sort of an older school DC Universe Classics style of KGBeast. Happy to have this modern rebirth version to join him. And the KGBeast always reminded me of the NVK Demon. Kind of similar-ish villains. And then here he is next to the Reaper. This was a new Bat villain released in figure form in recent history. This guy's from the older school comics, probably from the 80s or so. Really, really happy to be adding some new Bat Rogues to the roster. And like I said before, this is a bulkier, beefier figure. I believe him to be made on the same sort of body as the Dark Knight Returns figures, utilizing some Master of the Universe parts. And then here are 5 of the 6 parts of Killer Croc put together. Really making progress here. This guy's looking way cooler than I originally anticipated. So now let's take a look at Alfred Pennyworth. This will be the figure that I'm most looking forward to in the wave. And you might think to yourself, really, just a suited butler guy? But part of what makes him so special is he has these 4 different heads, giving you 4 different versions of Alfred. Different characters overall. Eventually I'm going to have to get some more of these figures so that I can have their heads on simultaneously. But for now, absolutely fantastic. So he comes with Killer Croc's right arm, and that will conclude the last part of him. He comes with a silver tray, a glass of water that you can serve to Master Wayne, a wrinkled up bat cowl, you can bring him on the tray as well. Then the head, he has 4 different heads, and they are amazing. The head he's wearing now is a comic themed head. The bottom left, sort of albino one, is a villain called the Outsider. And that was, at least in the original version, Alfred died and was revived by some scientists. Ended up being that villain. Did some bad stuff, they tracked him down, figured out it was Alfred, and they're able to make him well again. Of course, the Outsider has come back a couple different times. I think there's a more modern version of him. The center head is Michael Gough from the Burton films. I cannot believe we're finally getting an Alfred figure of that. That is amazing, and he looks great. And then Alan Napier from the 1966 show. Absolutely amazing to get all these different versions of Alfred at the same time. But before I look at the accessories, let's check out the actual figure. So you can see his face here, British, proper, very stereotypical comic looking Alfred. Love his suit. He's got the vest, tie, shirt, jacket, etc. White gloves. The tail of his suit. Overall, this guy's looking great. So next, let's check out his accessories. Silver tray, bat cowl, cup, and 4 heads. And then here is the wrinkled up cowl that came with Alfred compared to the one that came with Dick Grayson Batman. And then here's Alfred as he's delivering his cowl to the unmasked Bruce Wayne working the Batcave. And then here's his silver tray that came with the Multiverse Alfred, next to the one that came with the DC Collectibles Batman the Animated Series Alfred. And then here's Alfred as he's delivering a glass of water to Master Wayne, sitting in front of the fireplace in Wayne Manor. Next, let's check out his heads here. He comes with 4 different interchangeable heads, giving you completely different characters of Alfred, which is absolutely awesome. They look great. And then you also got the Outsider head here, which even though it is Alfred, it's also a brand new Bat-Rogue in figure form. And then just because, here are all 4 of those heads with a Michael Caine Movie Master Alfred head as well. And then here he is with the Outsider head on. I must say, I wasn't familiar with the character of Outsider. I had to Google it and look it up. The coloring looks really good. The detail, the shading, the paint, the blue eyes. Pretty unique and pretty cool to get a different Bat-Rogue. And then here's the comic version of Alfred's head. Very sort of traditional and classic. Love the way that looks. And then here he is with the 1966 Adam West Batman TV show Alfred. This is Alan Napier's head. Never in a million years did I ever think we'd get something like this. Super, super cool. In some ways, they continued the 1966 line. And then here he is with the 1989 Batman Burton film Michael Gough as Alfred, head on this body. This is definitely the best head. It looks so good. They did a great job with his likeness rights. Never would have I expected to get this guy either, especially since Mattel never made a Keaton Batman in this scale. This head looks great. Nice job, Mattel, executing it. Normally I'd expect a really soft sculpt from Mattel, but this one is great. And then here he is with the Michael Caine head from the Dark Knight trilogy on there. Head's a little bit too small, but it looks passable. And then moving back to the Michael Gough head, the first thing I wanted to do when I saw this at San Diego Comic-Con last month was see how he'd fit in with the NECA Keaton Batman. And I must say, scale-wise, he fits in great with this guy. He's pretty tall, and they look like a match made in heaven. And then here he is next to the other Mattel Multiverse figures from the Burton Schumacher franchise. We've got the Val Kilmer, Batman Forever Batman, and of course Michael Gough was the butler in that as well. And then the Danny DeVito Penguin from Batman Returns. Really wish Mattel was able to get us a little more from these films. And then moving back to the Alan Napier head, here he is next to the Mattel 1966 Adam West Batman figure. Now, even though Alan Napier is a tall guy, this scale difference is too much to make this match work. Then here he is next to the 1966 Allies. Pretty cool that they found a way to sort of expand the line. And then here he is, another character to fill in the 1966 collection. And then, yes, this figure does fit inside the 1966 Mattel Batmobile. He sticks out just a little bit, but fits in there pretty decent. You just gotta watch the tail of his jacket, tuck it in nicely. I do remember a part in the film where him and Robin were driving together. Good stuff. And I personally think he scales up with this NECA 1966 Adam West Batman better than the Mattel version. Now that we've checked out all of his accessories and his heads in depth, next let's check out the height of this figure. So this Alfred guy here, he's pretty tall, sitting at about 6 3/4 inches, a little bit taller than the rest of the wave. Next let's check out his articulation. So of course his head, of course it can go around, can look down a considerably large amount and up a pretty nice amount as well. Shoulders on a ball joint, they can go out quite a bit more 90 degrees, which is really nice. Of course they can move up, down, around. He's got the bicep cut under there, double jointed elbows, really nice. One of 2 figures in the wave with that. The wrist can swivel and it's hinged as well. He does have a traditional ab crunch inside of here. Doesn't really do a whole lot though. So with his ab crunch and his head, he can look down about that far and up about that far. Pretty nice. Traditional wasteful below that. Legs go at a full 90 degrees, no problem. Ball joint inside of there. Up, down, around. Go forward, almost 90 degrees, not quite. Back, really not at all. He's got a thigh cut below that. Double jointed knees. Then his foot can go forward and back, and it can rotate slightly. Next, I'd like to look at the reuse of this figure. Now, I thought this guy seemed familiar, so I pulled out this signature Joker figure that was recently released and decided to compare them. And obviously their heads are different, but their jacket, their torso, their tie, their arms, even their individual hands are identical. Alfred holds the tray, so small hands are great. He had a knife and a card, so small hand as well. Their crotch, thighs, legs are completely identical. The only thing different is their heads and their feet, their shoes, which honestly they could have used the same shoes as far as I was concerned. But you know what? It works. These are both great figures. Next, let's compare them to some other Alfred figures, starting with the other Mattel Alfred figures. This is the only one Mattel has ever made. This is a Movie Master figure from the Dark Knight trilogy, Michael Caine. A little bit shorter scale-wise than this Alfred. And then here he's next to some DC Direct and DC Collectibles Alfred figures. The one on the far right is Hush. He's been sort of my default comic Alfred for a long time. The one on the left is from Batman the Animated Series. DC Collectibles is actually making another Alfred figure very soon. It's from the film Batman vs. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And then here he is next to a DST or Diamond Select Toys Alfred figure. This is the tallest of all the Alfreds. They've given us almost all the live incarnation versions of Alfred except for Jeremy Irons from Batman vs. Superman. Really hoping some company will eventually give us one of those. And then here he is next to all the different Alfred figures in my collection. Looking forward to getting the next one from the Ninja Turtle film, as well as getting 3 more of these Alfreds so I can have each head on there simultaneously. Finally getting a lot of Alfred love lately. And then here's Alfred taking to the fire, keeping Master Wayne warm in the Wayne Manor. And then here he is sitting down, reading a good book with a glass of wine in the Wayne Library. And then here he is doing a little bit of dusting around the Wayne Manor. And then here he is helping do some detective work in the cave. And then here's Alfred bringing a cowl to an unmasked Grayson Batman at the computer. And then here's the Michael Go Alfred bringing the Keaton NECA Batman some food while he's doing some research at the computer. And then that allows us to finally put the last piece of Croc together. Here he is, massive, large, Build-A-Figure, Collect and Connect Killer Croc. Whole lot better than last time we got a Collect and Connect Croc. That was from the Suicide Squad line. That guy was pretty small. So let's take a quick look at him. You can see his face here. I like his red eyes sunken in there. He's got the scales all over his face, all over his body. The detail is a lot better than I expected. Sharp, sharp teeth, articulated jaw. Really liking that. You can see the strong, shorter shoulder muscles. Oh, this guy's big, huge, massive. Definitely reminds me of King Shark. Man, they knocked this guy out of the park. I was not that excited when I heard about another Killer Croc because they've done so many. But this guy is great. So next, let's check out the height of this figure. From bottom to top, this guy's sitting at just about 10 inches tall. Definitely the biggest figure in the wave. So next, let's check out this guy's articulation. Starting with his head here. Of course, it can go around. It can look up about that far, then down that far, which is a whole lot. His mouth can open shut like he's talking or like he's chomping. His shoulders go out not quite 90 degrees. They're definitely on a ball joint side of there. Up, down, around, no problem at all. He's got the bicep cut below that. Single jointed elbows. His wrist is swivel and hinged as well. Does have a traditional ab crunch and can go quite a bit forward and back there. So if you add his legs straight, ab crunch and head, can look down that far, which is amazing, and up that far. Traditional wasteful below that. His hips go out a full 90 degrees. They look like the old school Dcms classic style, which is kind of fun. Forward about that far, back about that far. He's got a thigh cut here, single jointed knee, but it can go complete 90 degrees back. Foot forward, back. It's really about all I can do. So next, let's check them out compared to some other action figures, starting with Killer Croc figures. So here are all the Mattel, Batman, DC Superheroes, DC Universe Classics, and Multiverse Crocs that they've made. This guy on the far left, from the line that started it all, simply called Batman. It evolved to DC Superheroes, which is the second Croc here. Of course, in the center, we've got the Build-A-Figure Multiverse. And these last two are both from Suicide Squad, and believe it or not, they were both Build-A-Figures as well. And then here he is next to some more Mattel Killer Croc figures. These guys aren't from the DC Universe Classics and Multiverse line, but they're still pretty cool nonetheless. On the far left here, we've got Killer Croc from the Batman. Next, we've got Killer Croc from Arkham City from a different line, also called Multiverse from Mattel. This was for 3.75-inch scale figures, not 6-inch. Then, of course, in the center, we've got the Build-A-Figure Multiverse Croc. And these last two here are basic Crocs from like the Power Attack and Batman Unlimited lines. And then here he is next to some DC Direct and DC Collectibles Killer Croc figures. Some really nice oversized Crocs in the back there. And then here's a better look at him next to those two enormous Killer Crocs. Love oversized figures. Mattel finally made one that could scale up to them. This is the Killer Croc from Arkham Origins on the left and from Arkham Asylum on the right. And then here he is next to a couple of other action figures that are actually not Killer Croc, but I thought worked as perhaps different versions of Killer Croc. On the left here, we've got a wrestling mutant figure. On the right, we've got a lizard from Spider-Man movie. I thought they both worked good as different versions of Croc. And then here he is with a bunch of different actual crocodiles. And then here he is next to my entire Killer Croc collection. And then here he is hanging out in the sewer like Croc often does. eating someone's severed arm. So I wanted to look at the reuse in this figure as well as compare him to some other collecting connects. And King Shark here is very similar to Croc. Both of them are amazing Build-A-Figures. So looking at their feet are very similar. I'm guessing that they use maybe the same mold but adjusted the sculpt because he has scales on his feet. The legs, bottom half and top half, are identical. You can see the rips in the pants are in the same place. The crotch and belt are identical as well, just painted differently. Then I'm betting the arms are actually completely different. You can see Croc's completely filled with scales on both his chest and arms. So they might have reused this bottom section here. Overall, both are amazing figures, and they did a pretty good job reusing some parts. And then here he is next to what I would say are probably my 3 favorite Collecting Connect figures that Mattel has released. Clayface, King Shark, and Solomon Grundy. And then here he is next to a whole bunch of different Dcms Classics and Multiverse Collecting Connect DC figures. Really going to miss this if this Croc is truly the last one. Alright, so I must say I am extremely impressed with this wave. Being a Batman and related collector, that's what I picked out of Dcms Classics. Makes this wave extremely awesome. Finding this in the wild, quality control is great. Character selection is out of this world, at least for me. If I were to rate these figures, I'd go ahead and give the Dick Grayson Batman a 6.5 out of 10. I'd give Katana a full 7 out of 10. Give Red Hood probably a 7.5 out of 10. Just a little bit soft on a couple of skull parts on him. Red Robin, definitely an 8 out of 10. Probably 8.5 out of 10 for Red Robin. Killer Croc, a good solid 8 out of 10. KGBeast, another 8.5 out of 10. And Alfred, I'll give him a 9.5 out of 10, because I don't think I'm allowed to give a 10 out of 10, at least in my head. This is an amazing wave, at least for me personally. I love it to death. Really wish Mattel could have continued, but looking forward to seeing what McFarlane does. So this is D Hunter, thank you guys for watching this video. If you liked the video, press like below. If you have anything you want to say about the video, add it in the comment section. If you want to see additional action figure reviews from me, press subscribe. I do appreciate when you do that. I apologize for how long this video was, but I had a lot I wanted to say about each figure. So once again, this is D Hunter. Thank you guys for watching this video, and I will talk to you guys real soon.